Welcome to the Insulin Suppression Podcast, where it's all about going from hopeless to healed with certainty, right action, and science. Here are your hosts, Barbara and Charlie McDermott.
Hello out there, my name is Barbara McDermott with Shift Formula. This is my dog Baloo. She's my little energy diffusing pup who I love and adore, and she keeps me grounded. But coming from this concept of Shift Formula, where we teach the science of insulin and specifically how we can live a very happy and productive and creative life, when we understand we can actually suppress the presence of insulin inside us by just not overly stimulating it. Okay? Well, today I am talking with you about this concept of self-love and slimness. And as I said when I started, the concept of my daughter was going through a lousy chapter of her life where there was chronic and steady weight gain. She was in her kind of later teens, between the ages of 16 and like 22, when weight gain was steady. It was part of her life. So were incessant, and they got worse as the years went on. She was plagued by incessant thoughts of food or cravings where she felt like she just couldn't stop eating. Her body was urging her to continue eating. So weight gain, in a tender chapter of a young woman's life, becomes a pretty significant emotional burden. It's not a rock in the bag to have to carry. Well, we look for answers, we mothers, don't we? And I know oftentimes I look to someone like this woman, who I have great respect and admiration for, Oprah. We all know that she is certainly a powerhouse of right thinking or ideas that certainly serve to create a better life for ourselves rather than sabotaging a life for ourselves. And one of the headlines that I came across was this one down the bottom side. It says, "Love plus kindness equals thinner thighs." And any of us who have ever struggled, I'm sure Oprah would be one of those as well. I mean, we all know that she was very transparent about her health/weight struggles through her, adult life. So if love plus kindness truly does equal thinner thighs, how come we can't get it right? Does that mean that those of us, like my daughter, struggling with, and when I say thinner thighs, I'm not just specifically talking about that body part, just life in general, when weight gain is chronic. I even had friends and family say, well, maybe she needs to serve others. Maybe she needs to be more grateful. Maybe she needs to be thinking more positive thoughts. Is this what my daughter's problem was? She wasn't grateful? She wasn't serving others? She wasn't thinking positive thoughts? And believe me, we applied all of that. Well, the interesting thing is, when you open up this magazine to the article, it does have the concept of, and the author is like a life coach, a helping of people to get life situations solved. And their protocol was the idea of raising self-acceptance. If we can just accept the lousy in our lives or ourselves in general, then our weight will start to resolve itself. If we could just love others and ourselves more, our weight would resolve. If we could value ourselves, and if we would just have a stronger esteem about ourselves, then our weight or our daughter's weight situation would resolve. And there's lots of discussion. We could do a 3-day convention workshop on all the emotional layers that can keep a body from solving or resolving a health crisis. And any kind of weight chronic gain or the inability to resolve weight is a health crisis. Not just physical, but also emotional and mental health crises. But in the article, which goes across about 2 full pages worth, it really spends a lot of time on the emotional or the feelings and discussing how we can make those, talk about self-love, and then we have, rapid repair wrinkle cream on the other side. Love ourselves, but fight your wrinkles, right? It's hard out there, isn't it? But in the science component, one little thing about this idea of self-love and helping a person lose weight is that, slimming down is proportional to self-acceptance. So our body weight will become less as our self-acceptance becomes more. I think Oprah accepts herself. I know I do. I accept Oprah exactly as she is. She's a beautiful woman, every which way. So how can we say that slimness is in proportion to self-acceptance? Well, the little bit of science here is that self-loathing tends to increase stress hormones that are fat storing, or our body starts to hold on to fat as we are stressed because stress hormones are involved. Well, let's get to the science of that. Blue, I got to put you down for a second. What are some stress hormones? Well, the biggest one, and the one that most of us are very aware of, is this cortisol, right? That's a stress hormone. Now, remember, stress, I get stressed every time I do a presentation. I get stressed before I teach my group fitness classes, but they're positive moments, but I'm still feeling a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of unease, right? So stress is not good nor bad. It's just anything that creates a rise where we feel a little bit less at ease. So cortisol rises in response to our emotional reaction to a specific moment or moments in our life. We've heard about being chronically stressed, adrenal fatigue, right? Cortisol levels being out the roof. So when cortisol rises because we have a reaction to a situation, that triggers other hormones. Hormones are little pulses, little releases of compounds that stimulate an action inside our internal environment. So when cortisol is up and we feel a need, usually we have a need for instant energy. We need instant fuel that's fast acting so I can be ready for a moment or a crisis that's happened. Whether I'm running from a bear, this is all primal human wiring. It's self-preserving. If we are in a situation of unease that we need to resolve, we better have the energy to take care of it. So cortisol alerts our liver, which stores glycogen in our liver. And glycogen is just the storage name or form of this energy called glucose. Our non-science word for glucose is sugar. So glucose is one of the body's fuels. Fatty acids and ketone bodies are the other fuel, but our body can create glucose, or does create glucose from the foods that we eat. Primarily the carbohydrate, well, definitely the carbohydrate, but even some of the protein we eat can be converted. Amino acids can be converted to glucose. Fatty acids don't convert to glucose, though. Okay, but anyway, back to cortisol, telling the liver to release glycogen, which puts glucose where? Where does the glucose go so that it can travel to my muscles so I can run? It goes into our bloodstream. Okay? That's blood sugar. So because the glucose is not our bloodstream, it's delivered all over our body so we can have access to instant energy. And then when the blood notices, not that the blood notices, but our body responds to the fact that there's more sugar in our bloodstream, then we have a release of another hormone. It's not the stress hormone, that's the stress hormone. But the stress hormone triggers this hormone to be released by our pancreas, insulin. This is the hormone that's our body's fat storage hormone. When insulin is present, we are in a fat storage situation. Okay? Because when insulin is present, we have sugar in our blood that needs to be dealt with or used up. So fat stores are locked down. And more times than not, especially as we get older, or as we develop resistance to insulin, that usually happens because we have enough glucose, but our liver keeps putting more in because we're having an emotional reaction. So even though I'm not running from a bear, or I'm not really in a situation that is urgent, it just feels urgent, we can see how we can say that if we are in a situation we're not loving and kind to ourselves, we are stressed. When we are stressed, yes, a stress hormone, cortisol, comes into our body. Well, it's in our body, it's released into our body. You know, hormones are released like little pulses of stimulation. That stimulates the other hormone, insulin. And we find ourselves chronically with higher levels of insulin than are really necessary for life. But it depends upon what we're putting in our mouths and what we're putting into our mind. So when it goes back to wrapping up my story here about my daughter, remember I said she was chronically gaining weight from the year that she was 16 years old to about the year she was 23 years old. And she did have an emotional rise about that, because when we're gaining weight, when I say gaining weight, I don't mean gaining muscle and getting strong bones. I mean we're gaining body fat that we don't want there because it's more than what we want to be carrying around. And it's okay to say it's not okay, that my body fat is more than what I want. I accept that my human body works this way, but the reason we say it's not okay inside us emotionally is because it doesn't feel natural. It's really not how our body was meant to be working. We're not supposed to be carrying extra jet fuel around our body. We're supposed to be able to use it whenever we want to, like when we were 7 years old. We ate food, we lived life, we didn't notice any problems with belly fat gain or other fat gain, right? Or we don't realize it because cortisol's pretty high because we're stressed out. Insulin levels are also high too, so we're always in fat storage mode. It's only when insulin levels are lower that we can be in fat burning mode. You see, we don't lose weight, we don't lose body fat. Our body wants to use the body fat to fuel our day. So why was my daughter chronically gaining weight and chronically losing self-esteem, and then chronically being told by friends and family to be more grateful, to serve others, and to think good thoughts? She was injecting insulin in her body multiple times a day, and she still does today. She still injects insulin multiple times a day. Because when she was 16 years old, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That's an autoimmune disease. So basically there are compounds or toxins, whatever it is, environmental triggers within her body that looked a lot like the cells of her pancreas, so her body starts attacking. It's called cell mimicry. It's an autoimmune response to a trigger that we don't really know for sure what it was, but the cells of our pancreas that make insulin, that respond to sugar amounts in our bloodstream, doesn't work at all anymore. So she, just like every other type 1 diabetic out there, has to inject insulin. So what do you think was the reason for my daughter's weight gain from the time she was 16 years old to 23? Was it because she wasn't practicing love and kindness? Was it because she wasn't grateful? Because she wasn't serving others? Because she wasn't thinking positive thoughts about herself and the world? No, it's because she was injecting insulin. And when you inject insulin, it's not a perfect science like it is within our body. And she was eating the foods prescribed by the diabetes community that made her inject far more insulin than she really needed to. And that's what we teach in Shift Insiders. I say, no insulin, resolve your physical lousy, and then self-love just becomes natural. Because we're loving ourselves through learning about ourselves, then we're solving and resolving ourselves, and then self-love and gratitude just becomes a part of our day because we actually understand how it all works. So if you have ever been challenged by feelings of self-loathing and stress and have been unable to resolve a weight and health-related crises, you have a friend in here in our Shift Insiders. You can go to www.theshiftformula.com to learn more, and I'll look for you inside. So here's to a great day of love and kindness from me and Blue to you.